Hello and welcome everyone to today's session on how can a master help you develop your careers in medical health professions education. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Emiliana. I'm the event officer for the Faculty of Medical Science here at UCL, and today I will be your chair. We are hoping this session will address these course-specific questions you may have and will really give you an insight into what it's really like to study on one of our master's programs. I'm delighted to welcome today's speakers, Dr. Kerry Calvo, who will be providing you with a summary of our health professions education program. There will be a Q&A session and plenty of interactive opportunity for you all to join in today's session. So please feel free to use our Q&A function. This session is being recorded and will be made available on our website following today's event. Now, to introduce our speakers, we have Dr. Kerry Calvo, Associate Professor in Health Professions Education at UCL Medical School. Kerry is the continuing professional development lead and the personal tutor for the postgraduate student on the Health Professions Education Master. Her interests are online learning, curriculum development, CPD and faculty development, accessibility of learning, practical application of theory, academic and well-being support for learners and educators. So now over to you, Kerry.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Emiliana. So yes, I'm a bit of a jack of all trades, as you can see, both educationally and with a clinical background in general practice. So in both of my settings. So I've got a bit of a presentation to show you tonight about our Masters in Health Professions Education and why we think it's a great option for people. And then, as Emiliana said, we'll have a Q&A, so feel free to ask whatever you like, and I will do my best to answer those. I've also got Lisa Andrews, who is our amazing team manager, on standby for any admin questions that I can't answer. So I'm sure she'd be able to help us out with those if we need it. So I'm going to start off by sharing some slides with you. Firstly, I thought it might be useful to think about why study at UCL, what makes us special. And we're very proud of what we offer at UCL. And in particular, I think there are two main things to think about, and these work together. So in terms of diversity and inclusion, we have a strong history here. So we were the first university in England to welcome students of any religion or social background. We were the first university in England to welcome women to university education. So I think that's a good thing, obviously. And we were the first university in England to have a fully open access university press, so to make publications more widely available. And then if we look at measures of quality, then we're first in the UK for research power in life and medical sciences. We're sixth in the World University Rankings for medicine, and we're first in the World University Rankings for education, and that's a title that we've held for the past 10 years. So we care about our students, we care about inclusivity, and we care about quality. So then why choose the Masters in Health Professions Education? And I know sometimes it comes up as a question about health professions rather than medical education, and what's the difference? And essentially this program is very similar to master's programs in medical education, but we emphasize the multidisciplinary nature of it. So we have people from all sorts of health professions working together, which leads to lots of rich discussion. And the other things that we think are particularly unique about our program are the flexibility of it. So you can take the program over up to 5 years, and you can choose from a wide range of modules. So it's flexible, you have lots of choice, and it's convenient because it's an online program, but that doesn't mean that you're learning on your own. It's very much a collaborative program, and there are plenty of opportunities to get together with your colleagues to discuss things, but you can do that from wherever you are in the world. And earlier today, I was running a teaching session, and we had people joining us from the United Arab Emirates and from Australia and from all over the UK. So just to give you an idea about how you can take the master's programme, it can either be done as a flexible modular programme over up to 5 years. So you start and then you've got 5 years to take the modules that you need to build your master's credit in the next 5 years. Or we do have a small number of students who take a year out from whatever else they're doing and who study full-time over a year. So you can do either of those options. And in terms of, how you achieve that, it's all done at the moment via online delivery, and that includes both synchronous and asynchronous activities. So we have things a bit like we're doing today with this webinar, but much more interactive in terms of discussion rather than presentation, which obviously today as a webinar has to be a bit more presentation, but we'll model some of the interactive bit with the Q&A in a minute. And there's a lot of collaborative learning. So it differs from some online learning masters because it is still very much about collaboration and networking, and not just about self-directed learning, but it allows you to be flexible. So what you do is you sign up for the full master's programme, but you can leave at one of 3 points. So depending on how many credits you accumulate. You can leave with a postgraduate certificate for 60 credits, a postgraduate diploma for 120 credits, or the full master's for 180 credits. The other thing that's special about our programme is that we offer a number of different special interest pathways. And for each of those, what you have to do is have at least 50% of your modules chosen from that particular special interest menu. And you would also do your dissertational report within that special interest area. And so what you would then get is a Master's in Health Professions Education, brackets, leadership, research, primary care, assessment. And we also have a general pathway for people who want to be able to do a broad spectrum of options. And with that pathway, you can choose from any of the modules across the different pathways. So just to show you what's in these different menus, if you were to choose one of our most popular ones, which is the leadership pathway, then we have 4 modules within that contribute to that pathway, and then you can make up the rest of your modules from the other offerings. And those are all 15 credit modules: approaches to leading change, leadership for healthcare professionals, strategic leadership, and quality improvement. And they sit together nicely, but you can also take each as a standalone module as well. Similarly, with our research menu, we have conducting literature reviews, writing a research proposal, qualitative approaches for clinical education. It's a good job I don't lead that module because I struggle to say it, and understanding health professions education research. Our primary care menu is slightly different because it's been mapped to the programme for GP trainers. And so there are only 3 core modules within that menu, one of them being a 30 credit module. So that one has teaching and learning for health professional educators. It has clinical and educational supervision and introduction to assessment, which is a lot around workplace learning. And you'll see that introduction to assessment also features in our assessment menu. So we have the introduction to assessment module, assessment for learning formative methods, assessment for progression. So that's thinking about summative methods of assessment, and advances in assessment. So that's thinking about current issues. Now, in addition to all of these options that form the special interest pathways, we have other modules which sit outside of those pathways that can be taken along with these, or if you're just doing a general approach. So things like contemporary issues in health professions education, or curriculum development, or teaching and learning ethics and law, or clinical simulation. All of those sit outside of these specific pathways. So then if we just think about how you'll learn with us, there are a number of different ways we structure our learning. So obviously it's a master's programme, there's quite a lot of reading to do. So we have essential readings and recommended readings for each module. And what you'll find is that the tutors will explain about those readings to you, they'll explain how they're useful, they'll try and link them into the teaching they're doing. But there is obviously, as with any master's programme, an amount of reading that you have to do. We also do quite a lot of work with videos, so that might be linking to TED Talks, it might be linking to some things that are on YouTube, it may be video interviews that we've created. So one of the modules that I'm leading at the moment on curriculum development makes use of quite a lot of video interviews with curriculum experts. We also have discussion forums, which form the mainstay of our learning activities. And what we generally have is a learning activity for each week of a module. And those learning activities will have different tasks. And then the forum is where you share your learning. So we might ask you to critique an article. We might ask you for your opinion on something. We might ask you to share experience based on your own practice. And those forums allow you to talk about those things. And ideally with those, what you would do is not post one final big polished answer with loads of references, but you use them as a way to chat with one another. So they become like an online small group space. We also have some specific peer feedback exercises where we'll ask you to post something and you'll be matched up with a partner who then gives you feedback on what you've posted, and you'll do the same either for that same person, or you'll give feedback to another person. We have some collaborative documents, so things that you work on together. We have other pair and group work, so you might make a poster about something as a group, usually so that you can research a topic together and then present it to your peers. And then we have the live online synchronous sessions. And some of those are mandatory sessions for the modules. So we have usually a synchronous day or a synchronous session at the beginning of each module, and then we'll have some in the middle of the module or later on in the module and towards the end where we'll think about assessment. But we also have quite a lot of optional tutorial sessions where we'll say, right, for this hour, anyone who wants to turn up can, and we'll be discussing this topic, or you can bring your questions and we'll do a live Q&A. And that complements the asynchronous work. It is worth thinking about the time this will take, because obviously you're all very busy professionals. You have clinical commitments that will also take up a lot of your time. You may have family commitments. So it is worth just thinking in advance about the time that's required to study on the programme. And you should expect to study between half a day to a day per week per 15 credits. So obviously, if you were to sign up for a 30 credit module, then you'd be looking at 1 to 2 days a week. It is worth thinking about that when you look at which modules you're signing up for, to make sure that you don't sign up for too many at the same time. So that is something that we just ask people to think about in advance so that you don't run into difficulties later. Assessment is always a big thing that people ask about, and we have both formative and summative assessments. So formative assessments are assessments for learning. They are usually at some point in the middle of a module, and they help us with a specific activity to see how you're doing, to give you feedback, and to help direct your learning for the rest of the module. And then we have summative written assignments at the end of each module. And those are either a 2,000 word assignment for the 15 credit modules, or a 3,500 word assignment for the 30 credit modules. And they're usually asking you to relate some theory to an area of your educational practice, and to describe what you do or what you would plan to do, and critically evaluate the literature in relation to what you're talking about. So there's quite a lot of emphasis on critical reading skills, and we talk about that a lot through the course. Now, obviously, we hope people don't necessarily need to run into any problems or need support, but there is plenty of support available for you when life happens, which, you know, invariably it does. And so those take the form of personal tutors, and there are 2 currently on the course. So there's myself and Miranda Cromfley, who is the other associate professor in the department. But hopefully next academic year, we'll also be bringing on some of our other tutors as personal tutors. And they're your first point of contact if you're having any academic pastoral issues that you want to talk about with us. So we're always very happy to hear from people. We have, you can either book appointments with us or contact us and we can arrange a mutually convenient time to talk. And we usually offer video appointments with people. There's also the Academic Communication Centre, and we strongly advise that people contact them when they start their studies because they're really good at helping you with academic writing for a social sciences degree. So lots of people from healthcare backgrounds will come in, maybe not having written an essay before, or maybe not having written an essay for a while. And the Academic Communication Centre are really good at helping you to write in the right kind of style. They'll take a piece of your writing, they'll work through it with you, they'll give you pointers on how to write academically for this type of course. We've also got the Student Support and Wellbeing team. They are absolutely fantastic, really supportive. We have dedicated mental health support workers. They're there to advise on all sorts of different things. And so they're really good to get in touch with. And the personal tutors can refer students to them if we have concerns. And then the really nice thing at UCL is you don't have to try and remember who to contact or how to contact them, because we have a system called Ask UCL. So you put that in the toolbar and you click on Ask UCL, and then it will have lots of information and you can put in your question and it directs you to the right bit of support. But if in doubt, you can always contact the personal tutors, you can always contact the administrators on the programme, and we will make sure that you find the right help. Our programme is one where we have a lot of student involvement. And just to give you an idea about some of the things we've changed. So we have regular student staff liaison committees where the student reps will feed back various student issues to us, and we make changes based on those. And so some of the changes we've implemented in the last couple of years are more direct staff contact. So we've put in additional video tutorial slots. Personal tutor video calls have now been put in rather than previous just telephone calls. We've had feedback around, sometimes people might feel a little bit lost on the challenging topics. So what we've done is we've added extra synchronous teaching days. We've spread them out through the modules and we've put in more drop-in sessions. A while ago, students were saying they've sometimes found it difficult to work out where different information on the course was. And so we now have a dedicated student information page, which Lisa and Fran, our amazing admin team, keep really up to date. And it answers pretty much any question you can think of. So it's a really good first port of call if you've got any questions about the course, whether it's what style of referencing do I use, to how do I request an extension to something, or how do I get in touch with the personal tutors? All of those sorts of things are on there. And so how do we get our student involvement and our student feedback? And we carry out ongoing programme development, this iterative approach to our curriculum. And we have that through the use of student reps who feedback via the student staff liaison committees. We also do regular check-ins less formally with our students, and we encourage people to contact us if there are any issues. And we also have evaluation surveys, and what UCL has implemented is something called continuous module dialogue. So we run a few very quick, easy surveys at the beginning and the midpoint and the end of each module to say, how are things going? Do you understand what you're meant to be doing? Is there any problem with accessing information? What else would you like on the module? And so those beginning ones allow us to tailor the module to the individual cohorts. So it's not that your feedback helps the next cohort, your feedback actually helps you. And we do make changes based on those early dialogues. So it's a relatively big investment in time and energy and money. Why would you do it? Where could a Master's in Health Professions Education take you? And these are some of the roles that our alumni have taken on or have developed through doing our program. So we have people working as educational supervisors, nurse preceptors, we've got some training program directors, trust education leads, other university lecturers or clinical academics. We have people leading various bits of curriculum. We have examiners for various programs, and quite a lot of our alumni go on to become doctoral students. So be warned, you do get bitten by the education bug and then want to carry on. Another thing that's worth mentioning is that we have now become accredited on our programs. So we're accredited on our leadership strand by the Faculty of Medical Leadership and Management, and we're accredited across all of our strands by the Academy of Medical Educators. So what that means is that once you've achieved postgraduate certificate level, then you can apply for membership of these different organisations, the leadership one if you're doing the leadership strand, and AOME if you're doing any of the strands. So that's a whistle-stop tour through the master's programme. This is a key email to make note of because it's our admin email, and anything that comes into there gets directed to the right person to answer. Fran, who mans that email, is usually brilliant at answering most things and very, very good at directing things to the relevant people otherwise. Yeah, I really hope that that's given you some useful information. And I'm very happy now to field some questions. So I'll just come off screen share so that I can see a little bit more.
Thank you very much, Carrie.
Thank you.
Great to hear all about the master program. And to the audience, please feel free to add your question in the Q&A. This is your opportunity to ask Carrie and Lisa any question you might have. We have one question coming in. Carrie, I will read out for you.
Great, thank you.
I am a gynecologist currently working in France. I have a desire to complete my studies in the field of reproductive medicine in UK. How can studying a master's degree in this field help me progress in the way of obtaining a subspecialty in this field in one of the NHS program? Which master is recommended in my case?
Okay, thank you. So that's, I think it depends very much what you're hoping to do. So if you're wanting to integrate education into your work, if you're looking at studying, thinking about educating people in reproductive medicine, then something like our master's program would be really good. It's not a clinical specialty master's, so it won't teach you about reproductive medicine or help you in the sense of getting jobs where you need specialist master's level knowledge in your clinical field. What it will do is help you with thinking about how you would do research in your clinical field, thinking about how you would teach within your clinical field. Master's degrees are you often count towards CV points for when you're applying for different jobs. So in terms of career enhancements for clinical careers, then you get the benefits of having an additional master's, an additional approach, ways of developing academic streams alongside your clinical work. So I hope that helps answer how it might enhance a clinical role, even though it's not a clinical master's.
Thank you, Carrie.
I wonder, just while we're waiting for other Q&A questions to come in. Oh, I think we got another one.
We got another one. Thank you, Ken, for your question. Thank you very much for your talk. I'm an ophthalmology trainee in London. What would you say are the main differences between this master and the UCL Medical Education Master.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, yes, I can answer that one, having taught on both of them. So that the UCL Royal College of Physicians Medical Education Masters is our sister program. And the really key differences are that the UCL RCP Medical Education Program is face-to-face, and the HP, so our Health Professions Education Program, is delivered online. So that's one of the fundamental differences. The other difference is that the UCL RCP Medical Education Masters is just for doctors, and the Health Professions Education Masters is for any healthcare professional. So one is quite good for if you're looking at doing just doctor education, if you think you'll only be working with doctors in the future, and if you're looking to do a lot of undergraduate medical student training, for example, or if you're looking at postgraduate training in your field. Whereas our program will equip you to work with a lot of different healthcare professionals. And so we have a lot of doctors on the program, but we also have other healthcare professionals on the program. In terms of the content of the two programs, the medical education program has more core modules. So you'll do teaching and learning 1 and 2, and then you have some optional modules. I can't remember the names of all of them, but broadly speaking, they're similar to a lot of our modules. What they don't have is the special interest pathways. So if you have a special interest in research or leadership or assessment or primary care, then you have the option of focusing on those with our program, whereas you can't do that with the MedEd program. So those are the kind of big differences. In terms of what you get at the end of it, you will still have a master's degree from UCL, whichever program you do. And you will still have very high quality teaching and learning on both programs. So in lots of respects, it doesn't matter which one you do. Obviously, that's if you're a doctor. If you're a healthcare professional, you don't have that choice. So if you're a doctor, it doesn't matter which program you do, really. It's about, do you prefer face-to-face teaching? Do you prefer online teaching? Do you want to learn with other healthcare professionals? Is there a special interest pathway which you're interested in? So those sorts of things should help you then decide which one suits you best.
Thank you, Carrie, for your detailed response. Thank you.
Just while we're waiting, I'm just thinking it might be useful to think about some of the FAQs that we get on our pages as well. Oh, we've got some others coming in. That's great. I'll save those as a plan B if we need them.
That's great. Thank you. This is a question from Abigail. I would like to know if studying full-time for 1 year, how many days a week I have to attend the class? How many hours per day? If I decide to study the course within 5 years, can I finish the course within, for instance, 2 years?
Great, thank you. Yes, I'll answer the second bit first, if that's okay. So if you decide to study the course within 5 years, yes, you don't have a time limit that says, you have to take this number of years in order to complete it. I think doing it in 2 years would be quite challenging because you'd have to take some of the modules at the same time, which means you would need still quite a lot of time where you're not doing clinical work, for example, in order to dedicate that to the master's program. But if you were working 1 or maybe 2 clinical days and you had quite a lot of time outside of that, then yes, you could do quite a few of the modules concurrently and end up doing it over 2 years. Because obviously we also have people who do it full-time over 1 year. If you're studying full-time over 1 year, it's not quite a straightforward answer in terms of how many classes a day and how many hours a day you'd be doing, because the different modules have synchronous sessions at different times through the module, and a lot of your work would be quite self-directed because it's this asynchronous, flexible approach. So a rough guide would be, it would take up the bulk of your week, because obviously if you're doing a 15 credit module, we'd expect 150 hours worth of time over the duration of that module, which is usually 8 weeks plus the time to write your assessment. So you'd be looking at it being, as with other full-time degrees, you're going to want to spend some time each day doing it. But it's not like we'd say, yes, you'd be in lectures from 9 until 3 or 9 until 5. It's not as straightforward as that. Really, it depends on how you arrange your time. And you can do it from anywhere in the world, so you don't have to be over here in the UK to study that.
Thank you, Carrie. We do have another question coming in from Mandy.
Mm-hmm.
Great session, thank you. I'm a pharmacist currently living in the UK, not qualified to work as a pharmacist yet. However, Doctor of Pharmacy overseas graduated. Is this master beneficial for me?
Thank you. Yes, I think it's always beneficial to do these things. Will it qualify you to work as a pharmacist here? No. But will it give you additional strengths for when you can, if you choose to qualify to work as a pharmacist over here, or if you choose to work overseas? It will give you skills in research and in education, so training other pharmacists. If you were looking at a portfolio career where you might want to do some university work as well as clinical work, then it's beneficial there. It's, as I said in response to one of the other questions, this isn't a clinical master's program. So it's not going to get people clinical qualifications. It's an education master's, which gets you education qualifications, but it's linked to healthcare. So it's a very good program for anybody who's interested in teaching in healthcare, who's interested in curriculum development, who's interested in leadership, who's interested in research. So for all of those things, it's tremendously beneficial. If you're thinking, is this a master's program that will allow me a clinical qualification, then no, it's not.
Thank you, Carrie.
No worries. I wonder if it's just worth mentioning. So one of the questions that does come up quite often is thinking about funding and scholarships. Quite often people ask if we've got any funding or scholarship money available. And there is a UCL funding and scholarship page. And what I'll do is I'll pop a link to that. Is that something that if I post that in our discussion, I don't know if everyone can see that, but Emiliana, I think you'll probably be able to see it and share it with people potentially.
While I'll share the page, we do have another question, which I will ask now. Please, how many days a week for full-time? How many days a week for part-time?
Again, it's a little bit tricky to quantify in terms of days. Part-time, most people choose to do one module at a time. And if it's a 15 credit module, it roughly equates to a day a week. If it's a 30 credit module, it roughly equates to 1 to 2 days a week. If somebody is studying full-time, then you're likely to need to spend either a bit of time every day, or certainly, thinking about the majority of your week studying for your master's program. but it's not a fixed number of hours per day that we mandate. So it's based a bit on how many modules you do at once, what those modules are, what the credit value for them is, and what you're choosing to do for your report or dissertation. So I'm sorry that it's not a clear, I can give you a quantitative, this number of hours per week. But as a rough guide, you're going to be looking at doing the majority of your week if you're full-time, and around a day or so a week if you're part-time. Please don't be shy with the questions. If there's anything, even if you think it's a daft question, then please go ahead and answer it, because somebody else will be wanting to know the same thing, I'm sure. Otherwise, I'll just mention a couple of things from, again, our frequently asked questions that come up on our page. Because it's a flexible part-time course, then people quite often ask if they need to pay everything up front or if they can pay as they go along. And the way that it works is, if you're studying flexibly, you pay for the modules that you choose to do each year. So it's a kind of pay as you go, if you like. So that helps a little bit, that you're spreading out the payments rather than having it up front. And then before I come to the next question, I'll just mention, I've had a nudge from Lisa to mention that if you go to our prospectus page at the moment, there's been a little bit of a sort of technical problem behind the scenes, which means that not all of the options are displaying on the regular apply for this course button. So there is actually now a sort of orangey box at the top with application links that you can click on, which does give you all of the different options to apply, while the team are working hard in the background to try and get that working. So the links are all there, but you just have to click on that application link for Health Professions Education MSc rather than the big blue button further down.
Thank you, Carrie, for clarifying. We do have 2 questions.
Great.
Could you please give example of what sort of projects and dissertations have been submitted in the past? Any particularly memorable or innovative?
Brilliant question. So all sorts of different things. I mean, it has to be around something educational. But we've had people look at various different things. So one of my students has just looked at barriers and facilitators to women getting to senior leadership positions in education. We had a fantastic look at, it was a project that did a discourse analysis, looking at using a neoliberal lens, looking at professionalism and professional identity. That was fantastic. Probably more doctoral level than master's level, if I'm honest. And the person who wrote that now teaches on our programme from time to time. So that was a really memorable one. We've had people looking at online learning versus face-to-face learning, and how the pandemic has affected how people learn and how people engage with teaching. We've had people looking at perceptions of new education initiatives like degree apprenticeships and how that impacts on people's professional identity. So all sorts of different things that people do, and mostly very qualitative research, and you can choose with your final project whether you're going to do a piece of desk-based research, so essentially a big review of the literature, or whether you want to do some empirical data collection, where you might be going out and doing interviews, and it might be that you decide that you're going to do focus groups or semi-structured interviews, or Occasionally we get people doing a bit of ethnography and going and immersing themselves in something that's harder to do at master's level. But lots of different things. And we've had, in terms of reports, we've had people who've done systematic reviews, we've had people doing narrative reviews, so lots and lots of different things. And we do have examples when people get to the stage of doing their dissertation, and for all of our modules, we have examples of outstanding pieces of work from previous cohorts that you can use for inspiration.
Thank you. And another question. Can I start as a full-time student and later, depending on circumstances, then change to part-time?
It is possible to do that. It's tricky sometimes to switch between those two modes. So we do, when people sign up, you know, if you're hoping to do a full-time year, then we would, you know, we would hope that people can do that. But we have in the past had people through, you know, circumstances of maybe getting a job promotion that they weren't expecting, or something else where it means that they've had to switch from being full-time onto the flexible modular program. So yes, it is possible. With our admin team, most things are possible because they're so brilliant. But yeah, we try not to encourage lots of jumping between options and jumping between specialist pathways and modes of study, because it creates quite a lot of paperwork headache, but it's possible.
That's great, thank you. And one more question.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for your answer so far. We will receive teaching training on how to conduct quantitative data collection and analysis.
You potentially can. Because it's education that we're studying, the vast majority of the education research is qualitative in nature. You can do quantitative education research, and if you were to choose a quantitative project, we would make sure that you were matched with a supervisor who had the skills in quantitative analysis, who could help you use, for example, the SPSS software that you might need, how to analyze and sort of number crunch your data. The vast majority of people, is that just coming with a clarification about qualitative? Yes. So we have an entire module dedicated to qualitative approaches in healthcare education, and most of us that teach on the programme are more comfortable with qualitative stuff. It's a different way of working. It's very different from quantitative, but we help you through that. So we talk about different paradigms, different ways of learning, thinking about a move from positivist or post-positivist mindsets, where there's this idea of, you know, right or wrong, or something does or doesn't occur, to thinking about more interpretivist mindsets, where we look at multiple perspectives, multiple truths, and in between that we look at, you know, realist perspectives. So there's lots of different theory to engage with. What a lot of healthcare professionals find when they start the programme is that they experience a little bit of cognitive dissonance, which is where you kind of go, oh my goodness, this doesn't compute. This is so different from anything I've previously done. And that passes. And then people, you know, say that it's a tremendously rewarding master's program to do. So if you do sign up for it, and if you do start, you know, engaging with the reading and go, oh my goodness, I'm completely out of my depth, don't panic, you're with everybody else. Because I think we all did that or do that. And I certainly remember back to my master's when I did exactly the same thing. You know, I'd come in from a much more quantitative background on things, and just went, oh my goodness, this is another world. But it's a pretty cool one.
We do have time for more questions, so please feel free to add your question in the Q&A. Brilliant. We got one more question.
Mm-hmm.
I have 90 credits at level 7 towards a master's in education for healthcare professionals and looking into RPL, how do I go about this?
Really good question. So for those of you who don't know, RPL is recognition of prior learning. So it's whether you can transfer credits across or previous learning across from one course to another. And I'm going to watch the chat carefully here in case Lisa corrects me. But my understanding on it is that you can port across up to 50%. So if you were finishing off the full master's programme, then you can bring across up to 90 credits, as long as it's seen to be broadly in line with our programme. So if it's another master's in Health Professions Education, then it's likely, obviously not committing because I haven't seen it, but it's likely to be something which we would accept as RPL towards our programme. And then obviously you'd still have your dissertation and 30 credits worth of stuff to do on our programme. So you'd come in at the sort of postgrad diploma level, do 1 or 2 modules, and then look to do the report or dissertation. It's worth noting we do have 2 prerequisite modules depending on whether you're doing a report or a dissertation. So if you're doing a report, there's a module called writing a research proposal that you have to do beforehand, which is worth 15 credits. And if you're doing so that's if you're doing a dissertation. If you're doing a report, you have to do conducting literature reviews, which is again a 15 credit module. So if you're coming in with 90 credits, you'll have one or other of those modules to do for 15 credits, another 15 credit module, and your dissertational report. So I hope that helps.
Thank you, Karen. That's very useful to know. And one more question. What is the required attendance in percentage, please?
At the moment, so this is, it can vary according to what UCL as a whole decides. So for example, during COVID, it was waived completely. Prior to that, it was 70% engagement. At the moment, ours is set at 50%. So, I mean, we strongly advise people try and engage with as much as they possibly can. And we're pretty flexible in how you do that. So if, for example, there is a synchronous session, which you can't attend because you've got clinical commitments that you're unable to get out of, you can watch a recording of that synchronous session, engage with an asynchronous learning activity, and then that still counts towards your attendance. We are potentially reviewing that because obviously we want to try and get people collaborating and engaging as much as possible. And then the learning activities through the module also count as engagement on the programme. So actually putting something on the discussion fora for the learning activities gets measured as part of your engagement. As things stand at the moment, it's the stuff that you are at synchronously or the stuff that you put on discussion forums or resources that you put up which count. At the moment, we don't necessarily look into the sort of back end of our virtual learning environment to see, have you read the readings, have you looked at the different pages and count that as engagement? But that's something that potentially we might discuss. We're looking to review our engagement policies at the moment, but as things stand, 50% minimum engagement. I'm just thinking if there's anything else that normally gets asked that might be worth mentioning. Sometimes people ask about how quickly they'll receive a decision once you've put in your application. And that's usually a turnaround time of within 6 working weeks. So we do try to let people know relatively quickly. We don't sit on the applications for ages, but it does depend a little bit on where we are in the applications year, how busy the applications team are, whether we've got your references in, that sort of thing. But as a rough guide, 6 weeks for that. One other thing to add to, I think it was Mary's question about the recognition of prior learning. We do ask that your prior learning was done within the previous 5 years. So if you got your credits from your previous master's program within the previous 5 years, then that's fine. Anything that was more than 5 years ago doesn't count as current enough.
We have one more question, Carrie, for you. Please, could you explain what accreditation by AOME changes in a practical level?
Well, that's again a very good question. So having the Academy of Medical Educators accreditation for our programme means that if you want to apply for membership with them, you don't need to go through their portfolio application process. You just send them a certificate to show that you've been on our programme, and then you can sort of skip all of that stage and apply directly for membership with them. It gives you a set of post-nominals, which again is valuable on CVs. It allows you cheaper access to their conferences. It means that you get sent out various bits of education information by them. I can't remember if that particular one gives you access to a journal or not, but some of them do. So it's a sort of a way into a medical education network. What the Academy of Medical Educators is hoping to do is to make medical education a career pathway in its own right, in a similar way to, at the moment, you might say, right, I want to be a nurse specialist in urology. I want to be an ENT surgeon. I want to be a GP. So in the same way that you would specialise and do postgraduate training with a Royal College, the Academy of Medical Educators is keen to get the same standing as a Royal College. So in the future, it may be that membership of the Academy of Medical Educators is a bit like membership of a Royal College. So having MRC GP after your name, or having MRCS after your name. So it's still also an evolving thing, but increasingly it's seen as a useful thing to have. Does it change your teaching on a day-to-day basis? Well, it might not, but it does mean that you're more likely to hear about innovative teaching stuff that's coming out from them, and access to conferences and networks. Medical education networks are a useful thing. So networking is always very good in the med ed world. These are the sort of challenging questions we like on our master's program as well. We want people to think critically and not just go, excellent, I get that. It's what use is that to me? So those are absolutely the sort of questions we would encourage on our program.
Thank you, Kelly. We have another 5 minutes for any other questions. So please add your question in the Q&A function. We have a very interesting question, Carrie. Mm-hmm. Has UCL made any changes to their assessment to combat AI and ChatGPT?
That's a brilliant question, and it's one that we have been discussing. It was the theme of the keynote at the UCL Education Conference a couple of weeks ago, looking at how we can work with AI and how we can think about that with our assessment process. As things stand at the moment, the sorts of assessments that we use on this programme with written essays, I think are going to have to change within the next few years. So some of the examples for how assessments might change, obviously we want to try and increase the diversity of assessment. So we want to look at things like, could you produce something that would be like a conference presentation that you could then use for that purpose? We'd be thinking about, whether there's a benefit to doing some kind of group assessment versus individual assessment. That's the sort of thing that might need looking into. Having assessments that are other than just written essays, but also you can engage with AI, so artificial intelligence and things like ChatGPT in interesting and innovative ways. So for example, you might actually get ChatGPT to generate you 4 essay answers, and then we might ask students to actually look at those and critique the answers and draw out themes and reflect on that. So reflective work based on something that ChatGPT might generate is one way of engaging with it for assessment. So yes, I do think assessment is going to have to change. And it's something that we are aware of. So it's very much a sort of watch this space. Yeah, as things stand at the moment, we still have written assessments. I think that will change in the future.
That's great. Thank you for answering. We do have another question about the RPL topic.
Yep.
Would you be doing different modules, or might repeat 1 or 2 modules from your previous?
So you have a choice with RPL. You don't have to port in all of your previous credits. So you could choose to bring some of your credits and then to take more credits with us. Again, looking at the chat just in case Lisa goes, no, that's wrong. But from my understanding, you could say, well, actually, look, yes, I've done 90 credits, but I'll bring in a PG certs worth 60 credits, and then I'll choose to do other credits from the master's program. So yeah, you can do that. And it depends a little bit on what those modules are. So for example, I actually started, when I was a student, I started a master's in medical education at one university, which was a face-to-face program. And I then moved location, which meant it wasn't feasible for me to continue to study with the university I started with. So I came down to the Institute of Education at UCL. And I decided not to port my credits across, not to do RPL, because the modules that were on offer were quite different from the modules I'd previously done, and I wanted to be able to do those modules that were on offer at the Institute of Education. So I kind of just went, well, I'll use my 30 credits and have that as additional experience. But I'll start from scratch again on a new master's program. So it very much depends on what you want to do. I think hopefully the message that we're getting across with this program is that we are hugely flexible, and we really do try and make things very, very student-centered. So people do all sorts of different combinations of modules. People do the program over different lengths of time. They work it around their lives in different ways. And we try really hard to help you make it work for you. We're very, very supportive when people, have extenuating circumstances that means they need to put in, requests for extensions or defer something, or, we really try hard to help you as much as possible. So we're not one of these programs where we just go, no, tough. We're very, very supportive. And it's a fairly small team, and so you get to know us pretty well. Fabulous admin team. And I'm not just saying that because Lisa's on the call.
Thank you, Carrie. And if no other questions, we might want to end here.
That's absolutely fine.
we reached the final minute of our event today. This was very useful, and thank you for all your comments and questions. And please provide us with your feedback about today's sessions. You can fill in a survey which will pop up following the event. So thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really good questions.
Have a good night, everyone.